Good afternoon. My name is Darren Richie, and I'm here with Kristen Mason. Say hello, Kristen.
Hello.
And we're here with Dre APC, which is my law firm. We have 12 attorneys and about 10 support staff. And we're here to make sure that all individuals that are charged with crimes or have been injured in accidents have a voice. Oftentimes, other people with a lot of power and a lot of resources typically try to trump the little guy and make sure that they aren't able to defend themselves or to act for themselves in a positive manner and try to seek redress for anything that they're going through in their life. Right, Kristen?
Right.
So on Christmas Day of 2020, I remember receiving a phone call about a very tragic accident involving the death of Daniel Patton II. It's very sad. There is absolutely no argument about that. A death and surviving family members is about the worst thing any human being can ever suffer. Would you agree?
I would totally agree with that.
Our client is Henry Hurtado, and he has been charged with murder. And murder in the state of California comes with penalties that are really severe at 25 years to life, correct? And there's a spectrum, however, with regard to the unlawful killing of a human being. And we've got kind of two spheres in that spectrum. One is murder, which can be charged as first degree or second degree, depending on circumstances. Mm-hmm. If you've premeditated or you're deliberate with regard to killing another person, that's a first degree. If you commit mayhem or torture or criminal street gang, that's kind of first degree, and a litany of others. And if you're in second degree territory, you don't have those aspects, but there's one common denominator, which is malice aforethought. Now, what does malice aforethought actually mean? It's very difficult to kind of grasp and understand, but what it kind of means in the state of all the laws that we have and continuing to grow in that atmosphere is the wanton disregard for human life. That's really what it is. Mm-hmm. And so this gentleman, who's our client, Mr. Henry Hurtado, who also has a family who is suffering right now due to his incarceration on a bail that he cannot make with regard to defending these charges, is being put in a position where he has to defend himself on a murder charge, correct?
And a murder charge.
Yeah. And if you will, for a moment, would you just describe kind of what a Watson murder charge is? It's in the same sphere of malice aforethought, but what's a Watson murder?
Well, a Watson murder is when an accident would occur. However, because this person has already been warned that this direct conduct is something which would impart that intent where they're otherwise absent, it allows for the charges to be elevated. So as you were saying, with the murder charges, there's another one, vehicular manslaughter. That goes to somebody who doesn't have the intent or malice aforethought that's going on with the charges there. So the Watson allows to impart intent where there otherwise isn't any.
So Watson is an old case, and it kind of really, is really prevalent in DUI cases. So you get one DUI, and you go through all your classes, and you determine that, you know what, I've learned my lesson, I'll never drive drunk again. And then you get a second one. Typically, prosecutors will not provide you a plea option unless you also are under the scrutiny of a Watson advisement. And they'll tell you something like, okay, you're going on probation now, you have to do this many hours of community service, you have to do this type of work, serve this amount of time in incarceration, but we need to tell you, if you drive drunk again, you need to know now that it could endanger human life. So if that happens and another person ends up dying, you're going to be charged with murder, correct?
Correct.
Well, here we have street racing, and it is prevalent in California. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of spectators that come to the street racing events, and there's a lot of people that cover it as well, like photographers, for example. And Mr. Patton II was a photographer, and he was involved in the California and Los Angeles in particular street racing community. He was part and parcel of it, and he was present on that day to cover this, correct?
Correct.
As were, I believe, over 100 other spectators.
If not thousands.
In California in 2019 or somewhere there before, they enacted Vehicle Code 23109, which was law to make it illegal to even gather or spectate a criminal street race, correct?
Correct.
Right. So we're not into victim shaming. I would never want to be Mr. Patton II, nor would I ever want to be his family.
No.
As I said when we started this conversation, the worst thing anybody can suffer, ever, think about it, is a fatality in your family. You can never come back from that. You can never recover. It is completely sad. However, he was there covering this event. So to me, it's very similar to a drug war. Do you deal with the consumers of the drug, or do you deal with the distributors of the drug? Here we have people that are gathering to watch these criminal street races, which bring a ton of adrenaline to the atmosphere, and that's why a lot of criminal street races are organized in order for people to partake, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, please know that in California, we can even have an accident that yields no criminal liability. And there's another spectrum with regard to manslaughter. Can you tell us a little bit about manslaughter?
Manslaughter would account for somebody who unfortunately would pass away as the result of an accident without the elements that you're talking about of malice aforethought or any intent.
Right. Both laws in California that deal with manslaughter do not require that you have malice aforethought. One is voluntary manslaughter, and the second is involuntary manslaughter. Voluntary manslaughter has two components. One is a heat of passion, unlawful killing of another, whereas a man or a woman finds their other partner or wife in a sexual relationship and they are so consumed emotionally that any other reasonable person would act the same way, and they go ahead and kill the other person. Also, imperfect self-defense, whereas somebody came after you with a knife but you used a gun. That would be imperfect self-defense, would also fall under voluntary manslaughter. Does not include malice aforethought. There is no wanton disregard of human life, right?
No.
Involuntary manslaughter means you certainly had no intent to kill anybody, but you were involved in something with a high degree of risk and you went ahead and did it anyway. We also have vehicular manslaughter, which you discussed. And that is that there's not just a high degree of risk, but that you committed some gross negligence, correct? Okay. Well, Henry Hurtado, have you seen the video?
I have.
He is in the blue car. It's a Pontiac GTO, I believe. And there's another gentleman who's also been charged in the crime. He's in the black car, right?
Yes.
Both are racing. Admittedly, both are street racing. There's no dispute about that. And then he's going down the road, and the next thing you know is black car loses control, seemingly.
Seemingly.
Whether intentional or not.
It's hard to say.
He then hits the rear end of the blue Pontiac GTO, and then the GTO goes into the crowd, correct?
That's what happens.
We know now we have one deceased unlawful killing of a human being, which is Daniel Patton II. And we also believe there's a children that have been affected and got run over. There's a broken collarbone, and somebody else has been charged with this crime. Most recently, we had somebody that was the organizer of this very criminal street race in Carson that was also arrested, and now the complaint has been amended to add him, correct?
It's been amended to add him as a conspiracy toward the injuries of the individual spectators.
Despite the recent press conference, who characterized our client as a villain, meanwhile, while the Los Angeles District Attorney, Carson being a jurisdiction in the Los Angeles County under the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, has dismantled the hardcore gang unit, correct? Over 700 district attorneys. But yet the mayor and the sheriff in Carson have described this incident and our client in particular as a villain, right?
They have.
How do you feel about that?
I feel that it's completely unjust to describe him as a villain when they clearly know that this is an accident. They have seen the videos themselves. The sheriffs responded right after the accident had occurred. They saw not only individuals that recounted what had happened, but they saw the videos themselves. After all that, they're trying to impart intent on our client that clearly is not there in order to escape any type of blame on themselves.
Yeah. So the way I see it, and obviously the way that we're going to want a jury to see it in the future, because this case most likely will be tried in front of 12 peers for Henry Hurtado and for the family of Mr. Daniel Patton II is that this was a tragic accident. Everybody was there to have fun. They came there on Christmas Day in an industrial city where they knew nobody else would be. That's why they chose Carson, because they've not chosen an area where there's a ton of traffic. They chose a place that has no traffic whatsoever. So they were trying to reduce the risk as much as possible, and had no idea that there were a bunch of people that are going to be sitting right in the action. Of course, accidents can happen. It's unfortunate, and it happens daily. It happens even when you're not street racing. It happens when you're driving your car at the speed limit on a freeway. And here we have now all these spectators, including children and somebody who's been deceased, who's so into street racing that they've joined. And unfortunately, Mr. Henry Hurtado had no choice but to do everything he possibly could to prevent any issues. After he was hit in the rear of his vehicle, he too lost control of his vehicle. And we're going to be demonstrating that this is very much an absolute accident, and it's tragic for all. Correct?
It's a tragic accident. It's being tried as something that is intentional, something where they are, like you said, villains that meant for this to happen. That could not be further from the truth.
I know Henry Hurtado. I know his family. I've met his father. I've met his sister. I've met his mother. I've met his girlfriend. And I know what he's going through right now. And he suffers not only his own pain, but he suffers the pain of the deceased. This was never something that he desired. This was never the result that he wanted. He went out there to enjoy himself, as did hundreds of others in the city of Carson. And unfortunately, this tragic accident ensued. Thank you.